The glow beyond the pines. The Alaskan wilderness does not forgive. It does not forget. And it certainly doesn't cater to the whims of man. That's what Jacob Rourke told himself every time he stepped past the threshold of his modest log cabin, nestled along the edge of Denali National Park. At 47, Jacob was what many would call a relic, an old-school survivalist, part-time guide, and full-time mystery to the people who lived in the nearest town, 80 miles away. He had moved to the region over 2 decades earlier, seeking silence after a decorated but turbulent career in the Marines. Silence, he found. Peace, however, was always just a bit further into the trees. On this particular late August afternoon, Jacob laced his boots with quiet precision. The chill in the air meant early snowfall wasn't far off, though for now, the forest was caught in a golden, bittersweet moment between summer's breath and autumn's sigh. Hunting season hadn't officially begun, but he'd spotted movement on his trail cams. Elk, maybe even a moose. His cabin stores were running low, and he welcomed the excuse to be alone with the trees. The rifle clicked softly as he locked it in place across his back, the familiar weight of comfort. His breath steamed in the crisp air as he stepped into the woods, guided by instinct more than trail. 10 miles in, the trail forked, one side well-worn and marked with faded blazes, the other overgrown and barely noticeable. A faint claw mark on a tree trunk to the right drew his attention, deep and fresh. Predator territory. Still, his gut said go left. He didn't. He went right. There was no warning when it began. The birds stopped singing. The wind that rustled through the spruce needles went silent. Even the buzz of flies ceased, as though nature itself held its breath. Jacob paused, slowly raising his hand to steady his rifle, his eyes scanning the dense underbrush. No movement. No sound. Then, light. It wasn't the golden hue of the setting sun or the sudden flicker of lightning. This was something else entirely. A glow, soft, orange-white, pulsed rhythmically from beyond a dense thicket of alder bushes to his northeast, about 30 yards away. It was unnatural. Controlled. He crouched low, moving like a shadow, soundless over pine needles and damp moss. The glow grew more distinct as he approached. And then he saw it, just past the thicket, partially buried beneath a hillside, was a door. Not a natural formation. Not an old ranger outpost or abandoned hunting blind. A steel-reinforced, matte black door, bunker style, sunken into the slope like it had been hidden there intentionally, camouflaged by the earth and brush around it. What in God's name is this? Jacob's instincts screamed at him to leave, to walk away and forget the glow ever existed. But curiosity had a different command. The light came from a narrow slit in the side of the door, what looked like a handmade window with reinforced glass, and inside, movement, a flicker of shadow. Jacob stepped closer. His hand brushed against a nearby branch, and a snap rang out through the silence like a gunshot. The movement inside ceased. He held his breath. Then, slowly, the door opened. A figure stepped into the fading light of day. It was a man, mid-30s, lean build, wearing dark hiking gear with no identifiable markings, clean-shaven, alert, and carrying a sidearm openly strapped to his thigh. The man looked straight at Jacob, not startled, not surprised, like he'd been waiting. "You're not supposed to be here," the man said, his voice low and measured. Jacob straightened slowly, not making any sudden moves. "Didn't mean to stumble on anything. I was tracking a bull moose. Took the wrong ridge." "You didn't take the wrong ridge," the man replied. "You saw the light. That's why you came." Something in his tone chilled Jacob more than the wind ever could. "Who are you?" Jacob asked. But before the man could answer, a child's voice rang out behind him, quiet but distinct. "Papa." "Who's that?" Jacob's eyes shifted over the man's shoulder, and his breath caught. There she was, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, pale, fragile-looking, wearing a knit blue sweater that looked handmade. Her hair was in 2 braids, and in her hands was a small mason jar filled with stones. No, they glittered too brightly. Crystals. The man turned, stepping aside to shield her. "Go back inside, Ray," he said sharply. "Now." "But I want to." "Now." The girl hesitated. Her eyes locked on Jacob's for a single, haunting second. Then she disappeared inside, and the door slammed shut behind her with a metallic thud. Jacob stared at the man. "You living out here? With her? There's a storm rolling in, and that's no place for a kid." "We're fine," the man said. "We don't need anything. And we don't want to be found. I wasn't looking for you. Doesn't matter. You found us." Jacob adjusted his stance. "That little girl, is she your daughter?" The man didn't answer. "What's her name?" He still didn't answer. Instead, the man took a step forward, resting a hand on his weapon. "You need to leave. Right now." Jacob's body tensed, every nerve alert. "I don't want trouble. But that child, something about this isn't right." "You think you know what's right? Out here, in this world." The man shook his head. "She's safer here than anywhere else." "What are you hiding?" Jacob asked quietly. "Because you built a bunker in a national park. That's not survival prep. That's evasion." The man's jaw clenched. "Go, before I decide you're a threat." For a moment, neither moved. The forest around them remained eerily silent. Then the wind picked up again, rustling the leaves, and distant thunder rolled across the valley. Jacob took a step back. "I'll go," he said. "But if that little girl is in danger, I'll be back. And I won't be alone." The man didn't respond, just watched him, silent, as Jacob turned and slowly walked away, not turning his back until the thicket obscured the strange bunker from view. But even as he disappeared into the trees, one name echoed in his mind. Ray. The girl's voice, her pale face, the strange, glittering jar in her hand. What had he stumbled into? Jacob didn't sleep that night. The storm raged outside his cabin, lightning forking through the black sky, while the rain came down like a waterfall. Inside, he sat in his chair by the fireplace, the heat doing nothing to ease the chill in his spine. He couldn't shake the look in that girl's eyes. She wasn't just living off-grid. She was hidden, disconnected, maybe even trapped. And that man, calculated, cold, had built more than just a shelter. He had built a secret. Jacob reached for the small satellite radio he rarely used. It crackled as it connected. Static. Then a voice. "Dispatch. This is Ranger HQ. Identify." He hesitated. Then he spoke. "This is Jacob Rourke. Coordinates incoming. I think. I found something out here. And someone needs to see it." Echoes beneath the earth. The storm didn't stop until dawn. When the sky finally brightened into a soft gray, Jacob was already packed and ready, pacing the narrow confines of his cabin like a caged animal. He hadn't slept. Not even a minute. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, and mist curled through the spruce trees like slow smoke. Jacob loaded his rifle, slung his field pack over his shoulder, and checked his radio again. Still no response. Static. The ranger outpost nearest his location had gone dark hours ago, most likely due to power loss from the storm. If he wanted help, he'd need to drive 2 hours to the ranger station in town, but every bone in his body told him there wasn't time. That girl, Ray, was out there, hidden beneath the earth in a steel-walled bunker, with a man who didn't flinch at showing a weapon or hiding the truth. And Jacob had seen something last night he hadn't told the man about. Something strange. As he'd stepped away from the bunker, back into the trees, he glanced over his shoulder one last time. And for a second, the ground glowed. Not the doorway, not the slit window, but the earth itself, a subtle pulse, like breath, like the entire hill was alive. Jacob hadn't imagined it. His instincts were honed through war and wilderness alike. He knew when something didn't add up. And this was the kind of wrong you could feel in your blood. He needed to go back, not with backup, not with hesitation, but alone. He needed answers before the girl vanished forever. Jacob's boots sank into the mud as he retraced his route through the woods, following the vague trail he'd marked with tied strips of cloth and carved notches in trees the night before. A low fog clung to the forest floor, masking visibility and muffling sound. The forest around him was unnervingly still again. No birdsong, no wind. His every footstep seemed too loud. By late morning, he arrived at the thicket. The bushes looked undisturbed, and the hill where the bunker had been embedded was just as he remembered it, still, silent, and secret. No light this time. Jacob crouched and waited, studying the terrain. The air was damp and heavy. A single drop of water fell from a branch above and landed with a soft plop on his shoulder. Then another. A new sound reached his ears, a low hum. Mechanical, steady. He inched forward through the undergrowth, careful to make no sound. As he parted the branches, the bunker door came into view, still closed, still locked down tight. But something was different. To the left of the doorway, buried partially in the dirt, a panel had been exposed, small and rectangular, with blinking red lights. Security system. Jacob narrowed his eyes. This wasn't just a makeshift shelter. This was engineered, thought out, installed with power, surveillance, and, most disturbing, defense. A light tap of metal on metal made him duck. He rolled to the side behind a fallen tree, just as the door creaked open. The man stepped out again. This time, his face looked more drawn, his posture tighter, jaw clenched. He held no weapon but moved with the same calculated control. Behind him, Ray appeared briefly in the doorway, her eyes scanning the clearing. She didn't look afraid, just tired, disconnected. "Ray," Jacob whispered before he could stop himself. The girl flinched. The man's head snapped toward the sound. Jacob cursed under his breath. But before he could retreat, the man spoke, not angrily, not surprised. Calm. Too calm. "I figured you'd come back." Jacob stood, slowly, hands raised to show he wasn't holding his weapon. "You didn't exactly make it easy to forget what I saw." The man gave a half-nod. "I didn't plan to. Sometimes, a warning needs to be remembered." "What are you doing out here?" Jacob asked, stepping forward. "That girl, she doesn't belong in a bunker. You don't just hide a child in the ground unless you're afraid of something. Or someone." The man looked back at Ray, who was now sitting cross-legged near the entrance, examining her jar of crystals again. He sighed. "She's safer here than she ever was in that world," he said quietly. "Safer than she was with her mother, with her grandmother, with anyone." "Who are you running from?" Jacob pressed. The man didn't answer. "You said you didn't want to be found, that no one should have come looking. But what happens when someone does? The wrong someone. You can't keep her in that hole forever." A tense silence stretched between them. Then, finally, the man spoke. "My name is Elias. Elias Hart. Ray is my daughter." "Doesn't mean you're allowed to take her," Jacob said. "I didn't take her," Elias snapped. "I rescued her." Jacob blinked. "From what?" "From a system that failed her. From people who wanted to use her." Jacob took a step forward. "What do you mean?" Elias shook his head. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me." Elias's jaw worked. Then he turned and gestured toward the door. "Come in, you'll see for yourself." The inside of the bunker was not what Jacob expected. He stepped cautiously through the reinforced door, ducking slightly to avoid the low frame. The air inside was cool but not damp, ventilated, clean. The main room was lit by soft overhead LEDs powered by what appeared to be a solar battery system. Along one wall was a compact kitchen. Opposite it, shelves lined with books, containers, tools. And in the center of it all, a workstation. A heavy desk made from salvaged wood and steel, littered with scientific instruments, notebooks, and most strikingly, crystals, like the ones in Ray's jar. Jacob approached the desk. "What is this?" Elias followed him in, closing the door behind them. "It started when she was 4. Ray, she sees things." Jacob raised a brow. "Sees things. Patterns. Energy. Things no child should notice. She could touch a stone and tell me where it came from. Could hold a stick and tell me what animal last walked near it." Jacob frowned. "That's intuition. Kids are observant." Elias shook his head. This was different. Then the seizures started, and the tests. Doctors couldn't explain them, so they called them episodes. But Ray called them visions. Jacob remained silent. Elias continued. "Her mother wanted answers. Took her to a specialist. That specialist shared Ray's data. Within a month, a research lab in Juneau sent a team. They said they were offering help. In reality, they were preparing to study her." Jacob looked down at the notebooks. One was open, a diagram sketched inside. Energy patterns, brain waves, mineral frequency correlations. "She's gifted," Elias said quietly. "But to them, she was a specimen. I pulled her out before they could take her. And the courts didn't care. I was just the paranoid father with a military background and no custody rights. They gave her to her grandmother. But I watched. I waited. And when her visions came back, I was there." Jacob looked across the room. Ray was sitting quietly on a bunk bed, playing with the crystals like puzzle pieces. "You say she's gifted. But gifted with what?" Elias hesitated, then walked to the far wall and pulled aside a curtain. Behind it was a chalkboard covered in strange symbols, some mathematical, some ancient. Jacob stared at them. "What is this?" "She draws them in her sleep," Elias said. "I've researched everyone. Some are known, ancient Sumerian, even early Navajo glyphs. Others, completely untraceable." Jacob's head swam. "This is why you brought her here?" he asked. "To protect her from scientists." "From everyone," Elias replied. "You saw it. That pulse in the ground. She did that." Jacob blinked. "That glow." Elias nodded. "She's connected to the land somehow, to its frequency. She doesn't even understand it fully yet, but she will. And when she does, the world's going to want her back." A beat passed between them. "And you're willing to keep her in this hole to stop that?" Elias didn't flinch. "Yes." Jacob looked once more at the girl. And for the first time, she looked back. Really looked. Her eyes, bright and knowing, met his with a calm that didn't belong to a child. She raised her hand. In her palm, a single stone glowed faintly. That night, Jacob returned to his cabin, his mind a hurricane of questions. He didn't know what he believed anymore. What he had seen defied logic, defied science. And yet, it felt real. The next morning, the radio crackled to life. "Ranger HQ to all patrols. Alert. Missing child case reopened. New evidence suggests abduction. Subject: Ray Hart. Believed to be with her father, Elias Hart. Former military. Dangerous. If seen, notify authorities immediately." Jacob sat back slowly. Whatever Elias was running from was catching up. And Jacob had a choice to make. The light within. Jacob Rourke stood at the threshold of his cabin, the morning frost crisp under his boots, staring into the mist-covered forest. He had heard the broadcast. Missing child case reopened. Subject: Ray Hart. Believed to be with her father, Elias Hart. Former military. Dangerous. The words still echoed in his mind like distant thunder. He could barely believe it had come to this. But then again, the world rarely made room for nuance. It didn't matter that Elias had built a life off the grid to protect his daughter from being turned into a government experiment. It didn't matter that Ray wasn't just another child. She was something different. Special. Extraordinary. What mattered was that now, they were coming for her. The authorities, the researchers, the opportunists. Jacob had a choice. He could pretend none of it concerned him, that he was just a solitary hunter, a bystander to the strange unfolding story of a man and his daughter buried deep beneath Alaskan soil. Or he could do what his gut told him was right. He turned, entered the cabin, and began packing. He had one more journey to make. It was early afternoon by the time Jacob reached the hidden ridge where the bunker lay buried beneath moss, rock, and secrets. But he wasn't alone. From his perch on a higher hill, behind a thicket of spruce, he saw them, vehicles, 3 of them, parked about 150 yards from the bunker entrance, just outside the perimeter. No flashing lights, no uniforms, just unmarked SUVs and men in dark tactical gear. Not rangers, not local police. Government. He counted 5 operatives in total, moving like a practice team. Coordinated, silent, dangerous. They were preparing for entry. Jacob's stomach turned. He didn't know what their orders were, but he had been in combat long enough to recognize the signs of a breach mission. This wasn't a rescue. It was an extraction. He needed to warn Elias. Jacob crept through the underbrush, skirting the team's perimeter in a wide arc. It took time. Too much. But eventually, he made it to the eastern face of the hill, the one part of the bunker's entrance shielded by natural stone and shadow. He tapped twice against the steel wall in a code he'd seen Elias use the day before. Silence. Then a click. The door cracked open just enough for Elias to appear, face pale, eyes blazing. "What are you doing here?" "They found you," Jacob said. 3 black SUVs, 5 men. Tactical, not police. Elias closed his eyes briefly, as if he had been waiting for this moment, and dreading it. Ray appeared beside him, clutching her jar of crystals. She didn't look afraid. She looked expectant. "They're not here to talk, Elias," Jacob continued. "You know that. They'll take her, lock her in a lab, run every test they can. You said it yourself. I have protocols," Elias said. "If they breach, I collapse the entry shaft, lock down the vents. There are other exits." "Underground?" Jacob asked. Elias nodded. "Half a mile south. But it's risky, flooded in parts, and it takes time." Jacob looked at Ray. "She doesn't have time." There was a long silence. Then Elias turned. "Ray, go to the escape corridor. I'll meet you there." Ray tilted her head. "Are you coming with us?" "Of course," Elias said, forcing a smile. "But I need to delay them first." Jacob stepped forward. "Let me do that." Elias blinked. "You're not involved in this." "I am now," Jacob replied. "Let me give you time. I can lead them away, confuse their perimeter. They'll follow someone moving, not someone vanishing." Elias hesitated. "Why are you doing this?" Jacob met his eyes. "Because I believe you." Elias took a breath, then nodded. "All right. But once she's safe, we disappear for good." "I don't need to find you again," Jacob said. "Just make sure she's free." Elias turned to Ray and knelt before her. "You remember the crystals?" She nodded solemnly. "The black one for silence, the red one for power, and the blue for truth." "Good," Elias whispered. "Keep them close." Ray reached into her sweater pocket and clutched them. Then, without another word, she turned and vanished into the depths of the bunker. Elias shut the door behind her and looked at Jacob. "Go." Jacob moved fast. He didn't try to sneak. He made noise. Deliberate noise. The crack of broken twigs. The shuffle of boots over stone. The unmistakable sound of someone moving through the forest without care. He angled northwest, away from the bunker and toward the SUV encampment. It didn't take long. One of the agents spotted him through a pair of binoculars. Target moving. Northwest quadrant. 4 of the 5 operatives mobilized immediately, radioing each other as they pursued. Exactly as planned. Jacob ran. Through brush, over rock, past streams and deadfall. He moved like a ghost of his younger self, fast, silent, calculating. His rifle stayed slung behind him. He wasn't trying to fight. He was trying to buy time. A bullet cracked past him, close, but not aimed to hit. A warning. He slid down a slope, waded through a waist-deep creek, and climbed a ridge, leaving a trail just visible enough to follow. He didn't look back. Inside the bunker, Elias reached the underground tunnel entrance and pried open the rusted emergency hatch. The tunnel beyond yawned into darkness, narrow and damp, but still intact. Ray stood beside him, watching quietly. "You remember the way?" Elias asked. She nodded. He handed her a small compass and a flashlight. "I'll be right behind you." She paused. "I saw him." Elias frowned. "Who?" "The one who helped us. Jacob." Elias softened. "He's brave." "No," Ray said. "He's like us." Elias didn't know how to respond. He motioned for her to go. She disappeared into the tunnel, her small feet light against the damp concrete. He closed the hatch behind them and sealed it. The forest was no longer safe. Jacob's lungs burned. He crested the final hill and collapsed behind a rock outcropping. The sound of pursuit behind him was fading. The agents were spread too far, chasing shadows. They had taken the bait, but he had nothing left to give. His legs shook. His arm, the one grazed by a bullet days before, throbbed with dull fire. Then, a rustle in the brush. An agent stepped into view, not one of the four who chased him. The fifth, the one who had stayed behind. A woman, mid-40s, cold eyes, unblinking. She leveled a pistol at Jacob's chest. "Where is she?" Jacob raised his hand slowly. "Gone." "Where?" "Where you can't find her." A pause. Then she lowered the gun slightly. "Why are you protecting them?" Jacob swallowed. "Because she's not your property." "She's not his either." "No," Jacob agreed. "She's herself, and you're not going to own that." Another pause. Then a radio crackled on the woman's hip. "No contact. Bunker appears abandoned. Tunnel sealed. We've lost visual." Her expression twisted. She looked at Jacob again. "You're interfering with a federal recovery operation." "No," Jacob said calmly. "I'm preventing a kidnapping." The woman raised the pistol again, but a voice stopped her. "Agent McCoy," came a man's voice from the trees. "Stand down." Another figure emerged, older, authoritative, wearing a badge that read Interior Oversight. "You're done here," he told her. "But..." "You heard me." She backed off, fuming. The man turned to Jacob. "I'm sorry for her behavior," he said. "We received your transmission yesterday. I personally verified the lab's interest in the girl, and I wasn't comfortable with their methods." Jacob stared at him. "So what now?" "We'll list Elias and Ray as missing. Cold case. Quiet file. We won't pursue." "Why?" Jacob asked, cautious. The man glanced toward the forest. "Because some things aren't meant to be contained, and some children should just be allowed to be children." Jacob nodded, feeling an ache in his chest he hadn't known was building. It was over. For now. Weeks passed. The forest turned gold with early autumn. Jacob repaired the damage to his cabin, restocked his supplies, and resumed his quiet life. But he wasn't the same. He took longer walks now, watched the trees more closely, and every so often, when the wind was still, he thought he heard laughter, high, soft, familiar. Then one morning, just before the first frost, he found a stone, set carefully on his porch. A small crystal, faintly glowing blue, the color of truth. Tied to it was a note, scrawled in a child's delicate hand. "Thank you for seeing me." He picked it up, held it to the light, smiled. Because some stories don't end with a chase or a courtroom. Some end with a promise kept, a life saved, and a girl finally allowed to shine.